It's good to see everyone. I know most of you. It's really good to see you all. Would love to give a quick update on our rosy picture that is the state budget. But mostly I would love to open it up to questions and any comments and ways that our office could be advocating stronger for the issues that you all care about, because there are so many things that we could be talking about. But as many of you all have seen, we've faced two unprecedented years in terms of general fund growth. More recently, California is kind of facing a bit of a downturn in terms of revenue. Largely, that's going to be in part due to the stock market and the really high inflation rate that we've experienced in 2022, rising of the interest rates, our job losses in some of the high wage sectors. That's all sort of leading to the slower revenue growth than previously projected in the state budget. But the state's been paying down a lot of that debt with one-time surplus funding and one-time commitments so that they were able to address a lot of the shortfall. That's why we haven't seen major cuts to any of the social services and vital programs that many folks rely on, because we've seen that prudent investments and allocating a lot of these resources to addressing some of those budget shortfalls. So aside from that, there's been more than $30 billion in terms of preserving those investments in programs that are really essential to millions of Californians. The budget shortfall was close to $30 billion, this 2023-24 budget. That was addressed through a balance of solutions to avoid, again, those deep cuts. But it also has maintained our commitment in higher education, climate, healthcare, public safety, and social service programs. And so definitely can get into the weeds, but my favorite budget topic, education, Prop 98, the guarantee reflects a total of about $110 billion in 21-22 and about $108 billion in 23-24, and $3.4 billion of additional discretionary funding for the local control funding formula. For our higher education budget, we maintain in the California budget our compacts with both the University of California, the state system, by providing base budgets increase of 5% for each system. That totals approximately about $216 million for the UCs, $227 million for the CSUs, and $678 million for our student-centered funding formula cost of living adjustment, which will assist our amazing community college institutions in meeting the goals of a multi-year roadmap. And so would love to get into a couple more bullet points on homelessness. The budget coupled the administration's $15 billion investment to address homelessness this year with new accountability measures that we can work with cities and counties to sort of help contain those costs, and making us all more accountable to the community with a more coordinated regional plan rather than just funding and hoping that the problems that are persisting in homelessness get better. But we've also, as a state, identified more of a jurisdictional role and outcome goals, and a lot of work has been coordinated on that state level to be working with our counties in particular, and how our local agencies can help address some of these with more funding through the federal government as well. So I definitely would love to get into more details, but would mostly want to answer any questions that anyone has. Hi, Donna.
Anybody want to ask any questions? I would just leave it open as a kind of a free form question, and somebody could get started and softening everything up.
What about just some further details on the homeless and how you're in that?
Yeah, so in terms of the homeless, the $15 billion in investments is mostly being pushed through our county in all of our 58 counties, and going to be sort of worked on. I did a few more accountability measures to address where those additional dollars, and that, again, that's $15 billion in additional funding of what we've already committed. But again, some of those sort of have strings attached, because what we've noticed as a state is, and what we've seen here locally is, it seems like the problems are only getting worse, and yet we're investing more and more taxpayer dollars in addressing the issues. And so, the state legislature has been more singularly focused on, yes, we need to address more money, but we need to work closely with our counties and regional partners on what is actually being done, what is working, what's not working. Is homelessness in Santa Clara County and how it's funding the same as San Joaquin County or Fresno? And it's not. And what we're noticing is that there needs to be more of a regional and local approach by working with partnerships, many of whom are represented on this Zoom, to see, yes, the state is willing to make more investments, and that's absolutely needed. But as a community, we can't keep letting our constituents know that we're investing more and more dollars into this and the problems are getting worse. Why is that? What's not working? And so some of those metrics are, let's try what's working. And if it's not working, let's be able to pivot quicker, because as we know, with some of these funding mechanisms, we just throw money at the problem hoping it goes away. And once it's in the budget, it's almost like harder to switch those homeless dollars to new things than it is to create programs that we know works here in other regions. And so it's loosening up some of those regulations to say, okay, well, there needs to be a combination of things with supporting housing development and also supporting temporary housing and where it makes sense in our county, and creating matching programs and just better incentives at large, rather than just saying we're just going to give county money based on population and counties best. And again, not to rag on our county, but we can't just throw money at these problems and expect them to get better, because that's just not happening. So it's not about the carrot and the stick situation, but it's more about how can we really slow down for a second and really be listening about what is working on a more localized approach. We've seen a lot of support from this county in particular towards the amount of people that we're able to prevent homelessness from even happening. And it reminds me of the Great Recession when I was a De Anza college student, about the federal government bailing out the auto industry. Well, we don't necessarily see how many jobs we saved because of that, because it never happened. But we know that the county has prevented a lot more homelessness that could have happened, but it's really hard to quantify when that it didn't actually occur. So there needs to be a level setting on that, and that I think is reflected in more money that the legislature is allocating. But there needs to be, I think, a next chapter to that, which is that homelessness is not the same in the entire state of California, and the issues, although there are commonalities of why homelessness is occurring, there needs to be much more of a localized approach with partnerships, and not just siloing, right? Not just having the state of California, take away local control from cities and counties, and like they so often do, but really empower the local communities to say, we can fund these projects and issues, but let's work on it together, because you all know your local communities best.
Thank you.
So I got to follow up. Implicit in all of the things you just said is the fact that homelessness it's a housing problem. But I think we know that there's a lot of it out there that's different than a housing problem. That there are people that are there for various reasons, and in fact, the ones that are bothering people the most, I think, are the ones that are not a housing problem per se. what's being done about that?
Well, the governor made a very ambitious proposal, as you may have heard, Oren, about the California's Care Court, which is sort of the governor Newsom's new plan really to have Californians who are experiencing crisis in the streets, people who are homeless, and getting them into housing and treatment and care. You're absolutely right. It's not just a housing shortage or a housing issue. It's, there's this expectation a lot from local elected officials up and down the state who just say, we just need affordable housing. And it's not just that. We need wraparound services for a lot of these folks who are struggling. You can't just throw people into temporary housing or these, not permanent these shelters or even brick and mortar and expect them to get better and their lives to improve and for homelessness to be alleviated and eliminated once and for all. But that is why the care court system and working with our counties, I think, is a bit more aggressive because it's trying to force people who have serious mental health issues into treatment right now. Before that, they can refuse treatment and they'll die on the streets and they're suffering from addiction, and it's stigmatized and people don't want to talk about it. But my sister is currently homeless in Merced. She refuses to get treatment, and she's addicted to drugs. And I think we all know there's like 1 or less degrees of separation from people we know who've suffered from that, who've died from that. And it's an epidemic and it's getting worse. And we can't keep expecting to do the same things and expect a different result, which is why the mental health challenges, and not everyone who's homeless has mental health issues. Not everyone who's homeless has drug addiction issues, but they are major, major problems and alarming problems that if we're not going to address, it's just going to get worse. And it's criminal that we're not being more aggressive on it because these people need help. People like my sister need help, and they're not getting it. And it can't just be, we have a home for you if you don't do drugs, or we have a home for you, but you're not mentally able to take care of yourself. And so that's why the wraparound services, why the state is investing more money than it ever has before into these county programs. We need to be working closely with the county to and our cities to make a lot of these programs aware. There's a reason why the county level of government is called the invisible layer of government. And that's because they do so much of our social services work, but really a lot of people don't know the extent of which the programs are being offered. And it requires us to get out of our silos and be working with them because there's money available there and resources and programs. But if they're not, we know in government, if these programs aren't getting utilized, they go away and they become eliminated. And so there's definitely more of an investment and understanding of that, but it's still pervasive. You see, at least in some of the major cities, that some of these wraparound services are getting addressed, but it's controversial. There are people who are very much against forcing people who have drug addictions and mental health issues and some of these other issues, and also happen to be homeless, to get help. So I think it's definitely a policy discussion, but it's also, culturally just not what we've forced people to do. And I think we're at a point where we can either let people keep dying or let homelessness persist or let these issues persist, which is bankrupting the state, or we can finally start addressing the issues.
Patrick,
some light topics for us to talk about.
No, thank you for your, and
I just want to be honest,
Yeah, no, I'm glad to hear that. And well, I mean, I know a little bit about it, and I don't know how that new program is actually being implemented yet or whatever because of the issues, but it is something we, as I said, we can't just pretend, oh, it's a housing problem. It's not, it's more than that.
Our foster children and the students that are struggling, trying to get through college, and they're homeless. I worry about the young people. So
yeah, absolutely. And we I know those young people. It's my sister.
Yeah.
They're students at De Anza College.
Yeah.
They're our neighbors, and we need to address these issues. And so that's why I have a sense of urgency on a lot of this. Hi, Richard. You have a question?
Yeah,
does-
Richard
does my
has.
microphone work?
Yes, it's on, Richard. We hear you.
Good. So just one more question on the issue of homelessness and people in need of these services. That I think there'd be more enthusiasm and support if there was a demonstrated success, like on the smallest level. Pick a tiny town and fix it so that we know we're not just wasting more money, because I think we've wasted a lot of money doing the wrong thing. So is there evidence that we have identified a system that works and gets people safe and gets the community more settled?
No.
Well, can I talk about that a little bit? So, you know, Richard, it's kind of funny. Cupertino itself is a really good example of dealing with it in the best way possible. When we had the homeless encampment on Wolf Road, council actually put forward a healthy amount of dollars to deal with the behavioral and mental health support needed that Patrick talks about as wraparound services. That is the part that's controversial because not everybody has mental or behavioral health issues, but I'll tell you that particular encampment, I would say, was 60 to 70% had some behavioral mental health issues to address. I also dealt with an individual on staff, actually, when I was at another nonprofit in downtown San Jose. Definitely neither one of those, but kind of cognitive issues that got related to being able to do kind of everyday things that you and I don't really think about as hard. So there's support in whatever form that's needed in these wraparound services to help these individuals enable their lives and transition into something that we would consider normalcy. That's just my personal experience in a microcosm. And I've heard and read a number of stories about, while they cannot put their hands on the exact percentages, it is a very high percentage of people who do suffer from mental and behavioral health and drug use, or you could argue drug use drives behavior and mental health, or it's a big circular argument. But either way, we've got to deal with all of that if you want these folks to be permanently off the streets in a meaningful way. I see a raised hand from Edna.
Yeah, I would like to ask Patrick how we can help you to publicize the existing programs to help the homeless.
Yes.
Definitely. So I can send resources to the chamber regarding the Care Court program. And just for those who don't quite know what Care Court is, so it's basically a community assistance recovery empowerment. That's what CARE stands for. It's a plan by the governor to address the housing, treatment, and care crisis in our homeless. And it's two main things. It's acting early to get people the support that they need. So much of it is really aimed at helping Californians who are suffering from untreated mental health issues and substance disorders that leads to homelessness. But what it also does, it is each person is connected with a court-ordered care plan and a supporter for up to 24 months. That is the new thing. That is is a court-mandated supporter, and it's providing some assistance with a court-mandated counselor for up to 24 months. The second thing it does that it's also sets them up with an individualized care plan. Remember my comments earlier, homelessness is not just a statewide general plan. We need there are many reasons why people are homeless. We need that individualized, localized care and attention to not only help prevent the untreated mental illness and substance abuse and other issues and make it court mandated, but it also connects them with a care team in the county and in their community that it can include clinically prescribed drug treatment programs. It could include supportive services that the county is already providing that people don't know about. It includes stabilizing their medication and stabilizing their housing plan with what resources are available. So I'm happy to send resources, flyers, contact information about how this is getting rolled out. It's new. It's controversial because anything new to address these big problems are always going to be controversial, but we can't just keep doing the same thing, I guess is my thing. And I'm also watching and waiting to see how this works too. But at least it's something dramatically different than just throwing money at the problem.
Thank you, Patrick. I have a couple more raised hands. Luis?
Hi. I wanted to go back to your comment about, having a model of success, and the fact that you haven't identified one is a problem and opportunity. And I wanted to suggest that you take a look at the results of a Bay Area think tank kind of did a nationwide search on trying to do that, to find some place in the country where some community was actually successful. And they identified a program in San Antonio, and they did a documentary on it, and it's on the web at beyondhomeless.org. And if you're looking for a model, it's the best I've seen, and it's worth taking a look at. And I believe they're trying to do some things in the Bay Area, and it may be an opportunity to bring that model here. So I recommend you take a look at it.
Thank you.
Great. We have another raised hand. Thank you, Luis. Marianne?
Yeah, there is a success story, not in the mental health area in the local area, but in helping people to prevent homelessness, particularly people who are renting. And that is the monthly stipend or payment that a very few cities have initiated for their qualified residents. And Modesto had a very successful program where they paid people, and you're shaking your head, Patrick, you're familiar with it, I'm sure, where they paid people $500 a month that could be used for whatever they needed to use it for. And they were able to stay in their homes, apartments, and prevent homelessness, which that is, I think, if we could look at preventive measures similar to our public health system, that as models for this, going to the schools at the very lowest levels and identifying potential issues in families there for children who are at risk for mental health programs. I mean, there's lots of creative things. My question is, who in the state is coordinating this? What agency, what are the legislators looking at this? Who do we look to for leadership?
Absolutely. So the Care Court program it was initiated by the governor's office, passed by the legislature, but the state legislature and the governor, they all look to the counties to implement these bold ideas, right? Because the counties are the social service programs for the state. That's how the state funds all of these resources and has been. So this is a county-run program that's being slowly implemented across all of the counties. So there are, not all of the counties have Care Court up and running right now. So go back to Lowenthal's example, they are slowly implementing these ideas. But the real issue, we have anecdotal examples of how things are helpful in this community or that community. The real issue is scale for California, right? Yes, a lot of these smaller anecdotal examples throughout the United States are helpful, but California is roughly 12 or 13% of the population in the United States, but we have over 30% of the homelessness in the United States. So yes, there are examples in parts of California and in around the country that help and work. But the problem for the state of California as a whole is this: when we start to scale these issues, they become exorbitantly more expensive and much harder to implement on a scalable level. And that's why we're really looking at that closer partnership and accountability with our counties, because the homeless student at De Anza is not able, I can't solve that as a board member alone. Just as I can't expect the county to just solve it either, and I can't expect the legislature to solve it either. It's going to require all of us addressing these issues, and I think CareCourt is a part of that. I think there needs to be more to that. But these are hard and thorny issues that if we sort of get out of our siloing, we can address. But it's the counties that are really in charge of implementing these.
Thank you, Patrick. It looks like Richard has something to add. Richard?
Oh, I have a different question.
Okay.
You ready for a different question?
Yes.
So big issue, of course, for Cupertino, and you probably heard about it, is our CD-TFA issue, where the state has asked us not only to reduce our annual income from sales tax, but to pay back the last 8 quarters of what we received. It's understandable that the state wants to change policies and tax allocation. I get that. And going forward, Cupertino will have to live with it. But when you're talking about offering services, at least at a city level, and basically our entire reserve now we have to send to the city, $50 million we have to send, to the state to pay back 2 years of sales tax where we were following state policy at the time, seems punishing. And I mean, is there work going on in your office to help find middle ground where, okay, going forward we don't get as much sales tax as we used to, but we're not punished by having to give up our reserves back to the state? Is there work going on there? And part B of that question is, where is that money going anyway? If we give that $50 million to the state, whose hands does it end up in?
Mine. Just kidding. So
I thought so.
So two comments to that. First of all is, I think that, I agree with you. The assembly member agrees. We worked with Dave Cortese to not only send an official letter, but lobby the state agency quite heavily on the fact that you can't you're going to bankrupt some of these local cities by doing that. And you could, just for folks to understand, there was a change in interpretation of our tax code by one of our state agencies that all of a sudden resulted in this, and saying not only does you have to do this moving forward, but you have to pay this X amount back. The assembly member thinks it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous. We sent a letter along with Senator Cortese's office, but also lobbied them to say, you don't make these changes lightly, and you usually require a phased-in approach, but it seems like you're unduly punishing Cupertino and a few of these other cities that are affected. And so we're going to continue to lobby the governor's office, quite frankly, and our state agencies on a solution to this. I don't think that this is the last and final straw. And Richard alluded to this, but Cupertino was absolutely following the precedent and the law and the interpretation by the state agency. And it literally, overnight, they decided to change that and say, well, actually, that's not what it means anymore. Now pay us $60 million back. And again, that kind of that erodes confidence in our state government, and it erodes and it greatly hurts the district, and that's not something that we really want to stand for. And so you haven't heard the last from that. Now, where does the money go? My understanding, it goes back to where the manufacturing warehouses are located within the state of California. So it would go to another city where the new interpretation where they has deemed it should go. I'm not quite familiar with exactly where, but it's definitely not in Cupertino. Rod might know exactly where.
No, they've created a new nexus that they're only counting the physical handling of a good as creating a tax nexus, where in the past it had always been where the sales office was, where the sales process is supported, where all the traditional things that go around the sale of a good. And of course, the sales office for Apple is in Cupertino, which is, a nice way to be able to acknowledge the presence that Apple has in the town and the long-term partnership that we've had. So you'll have some of that go to the different warehouses where things are shipped, but also the bulk of it will go to a thing called the county pool, which just goes back into the pool of tax funds that the state has that the counties get a percentage of based on both population and where the tax nexus is. So it'll be almost nothing to those jurisdictions because it'll be dispersed so much, but it's a huge deal to the city of Cupertino. I did want to point out, guys, that there was no change in state law, zero change in state law. The Assemblymember Lowe's office and our local delegations have been very supportive of making sure that they protect our ability to have the type of tax sharing agreements that they're talking about here. This was an administrative reinterpretation of the law based solely on a few individuals deciding, we don't like it this way, and we've tried to get the law changed and have been defeated a number of times. So we're just gonna go with it, and that's really a shame.
And it represents a drastic policy change and they're not the policymakers. And so what's concerning, not just selfishly, we don't want this to happen in our district, and this is not good. What's more concerning, I think, to the legislature is them deciding overnight that they've wanted to do different things and they're just going to do it on their own as a bureaucracy rather than get direction. And that's not how we do things in California. That maybe other countries, but not, you actually have to get policy direction from elected officials if you're going to make such a change like that. So you definitely have our commitment that we're going to be following that and working actively on finding a solution that is not what is currently proposed.
Yeah, it seems like kind of a loss of representative democracy.
Exactly, and that's the
policy.
Yes, and if we don't address it now, what kind of precedent is that setting for other things that they want to change?
Okay, well, let us know if you need to tell us tell someone how bad it is, because it's bad for us.
Definitely, I will recruit you all.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're a little bit after 1, it's about 1:15. I'm checking in with anybody if there's more topics you'd like to ask Patrick about questions. It's been a healthy discussion. Oh, I see some raised hands. Awesome. Back to Marianne.
Another issue that has risen its ugly head recently that impacts trust in government is artificial intelligence, and how we, with an election coming up next year, presidential election, there is a danger that we will be bombarded with a lot of false representations of situations, misleading information that will be unable to be able to tell what's true and what is just misinformation. And I think the legislature certainly has a role in protecting the electorate from that. What is the legislature doing about it?
I'm glad you asked. So most recently, the governor sent out a 35-page report directing the potential dangers and some of the potential solutions to AI, and really wanting the state of California to take more of a leadership role on this issue. It provides sort of a glimpse about how California could apply certain technology to state programs. But I know that lawmakers are really grappling with how to protect people without hindering the innovation of what AI represents, right? There's a lot of things are changing so fast with the dial-up internet and technology that I grew up with, but there's a real threat and a real danger not only to our elections and the misinformation campaign on social media that we've seen in our election process, but in fraud. We can talk for another 3 hours about the fraud in our that our local, state, and federal government has experienced over the years. But I think that it's also important to acknowledge the incredible innovation and sort of AI possibilities that also exist out there. And so I know I'll send you all this 34-page report to kind of look at more details on that. There's a good LA Times article about it I was just reading about a few days ago.
Yeah. Luis, did you have another question?
Yes, I did. On a different topic, one of the tools that the business community has to get policy relief is direct democracy. And there have been some efforts in Sacramento to make it harder to take an issue to the voters. Right now, the governor's challenging a duly qualified initiative to try and remove it from the ballot after people have signed for it. I'm curious what you think about direct democracy, and should it be protected, or is that something that we should be making harder to do?
I'll try and give you a straightforward answer. I have a lot of issues with our direct democracy experiment in California, because the political science student in me that went to De Anza College thinks it's, in theory, such an amazing way to have the people's will be truly represented, and to way to bypass interest control over things. But the problem is that the initiative process has been hijacked by special interests, and the vast majority of these initiatives are funded by large corporations or large special interests to impose and freeze up so much of the legislature's and California's money on these mandatory funded mandates, that it's actually leaving less and less wiggle room and control for the state legislature to work on. And it has been a process by which that I think has really hindered California and has really hurt us, because you've had these companies can bankroll and they are legally allowed to pay people $20, $30, $50 a signature to qualify for the ballot and get and say whatever they want to say to get something elected. And so the De Anza student in me is, yes, it's a great way to sort of make your voice heard, but we've seen time and time again that the initiative process is being hijacked and used by interests that are not in the best interest of regular Californians, but in the best interest of people who have millions of dollars to get their way if they don't like what the legislature is doing. And that's called our elections. We elect representatives to represent us in Sacramento, and we should work on, if we don't like our representatives, we should work on changing them. But I can send you research because I wrote a thesis on this issue about how our direct democracy has been eroded because of special interest control on the direct democracy process.
Anything else on that one? Okay. Are there other topics? you want to ask? I'm trying to fish around for topics to barrage Patrick with so he can answer them.
I think we hit a lot of
We
all
did.
serious, very serious issues.
It's good. It's a healthy discussion. I like it.
Yeah, it's very in depth. I appreciate y'all.
Anything else for Patrick? We have pretty healthy amount of time until the scheduled end, about another 40 minutes or so. But I don't want to hold people here if, you know, just unwittingly.
Okay, well, you've prompted me too many times now. I've got to ask another question. This is
Go
Richard.
for it, Richard.
Thank you. So, Patrick, as you know, I'm like a nut for trails and trail development, and we're working hard to get the Stevens Creek Trail now developed through Cupertino, connecting Sunnyvale up to basically up to Stevens Creek Reservoir. To do that, there's a couple of projects, and in fact, Evan has helped with one, which is the bridge at McClellan Road. But to make that bridge safe, we need a little more money. We need another $1.8 million, I think it is. We have a similar bad circumstance at Stevens Creek Boulevard. And basically what happens is people have to run across those streets and dodge cars. And they're actually quite dangerous. Both intersections are quite dangerous. And I know the state has just realized some new humongous budget challenges, but are there pockets of money we should be looking for safe routes to school maybe, or for infrastructure improvements or bridge replacement? These bridges are both not earthquake safe. Both of them they're over 100 years old. And the public works director kind of shakes his head when he looks at them. So I just want to know if there's something we could pursue to help get some of these dangerous pedestrian and bicycle areas fixed.
Definitely. I will first say the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
I'm squeaking.
And yes. So your engagement on this issue and getting more people loud about it, getting the city of Cupertino and their lobbyists to be loud about it in Sacramento helps. And the second thing is that I'll give you an example. The state of California was able, despite our $30 billion budget deficit, to identify, working with our office, $2 million for the Sunnyvale Lakewood Safe Routes to Schools initiative. There's always, despite our deficit. So yes, it certainly helps when there's a budget surplus and there's money that we can bring home to the district, but key issues such as infrastructure and safe routes to schools are always going to be issues that the state of California is going to be funding. There's always going to be pockets of money. That doesn't mean that we can identify and fund them every year, but if we work closer together as a city or as a chamber or in our office as community members and getting elected officials, there's definitely money still there. Case in point, the $2 million we got to help the Lakewood residents and their sort of dangerous area along Lawrence. Definitely.
So does that mean writing to your offices and Dave's office and
There's
maybe
no support. Yep. Making our budget priorities every year. And Richard and I worked on another project. We got $1 million for Jollyman Park last year or the year before to renovate an all-inclusive playground. And that's because Richard recruited me to be on a committee where we needed funding. And so I just wrote a letter on letterhead, got the details from the committee and submitted it to the budget committee, and it was approved. Took some lobbying, took some conversations. It might take identifying members of the chamber to go up to Sacramento and meet with legislators and talk to them why these individual projects in Cupertino are important for businesses or the community. But you know, another one of my favorite aphorisms from our former Chancellor Judy Minor, must be present to win. It's, you know, we need to be present in Sacramento and lobbying not just our office but others to shake the tree, because I really think it works. And
okay.
And then we have a track record of it working.
Be prepared for more email and more letters.
It works, definitely.
All right, thank you.
Sounds like a field trip to Sacramento is coming up.
I'm up for it.
I love Sacramento.
Okay,
All right.
then you're coming, Deb.
All right, I'm with you. I love trails. I love bikes. I love walking, all of it. I'm good with it. Okay, does anybody else have anything else? I have one more thing, but that's for after.
Luis has his flag up.
Huh?
Luis has.
I've raised my hand. I can't resist because
Go for it, Luis.
you asked for voices to be raised. So I just want to heartily second what Richard said. I'm a former chair of the Cupertino Parks and Recreation Commission, and the opportunity to extend and expand the trails and make these road crossings safer is a huge opportunity for us. And so I just want to say it's not just Richard who's a nut about this. There are many who support this. So I add my voice. Thank you.
And I know, Richard, how much money did we secure for that bridge renovate? Like 4 million? I know 3 million.
You got 5. You got 5
million.
And to make it safe for pedestrians and bikes, we need 7.5.
7.5 million
Total.
Just another 2.5, Patrick.
Oh, okay. All right.
But we got 800 from Row. So we're actually down to 1.7 to make
Okay.
all of it safe.
So you got 800,000 from Row and 5 million from us, just to be clear. It's not a competition, but if it was,
It's
if
in
it was a
scale.
competition, 500, okay, just check it.
You can do
It's
the
in
math,
scale
right?
to the size of the federal government.
So you heard it here, folks. We have a track record of getting millions of dollars, and I'm a hopeful optimist. I despite our budget deficits, we've been able to do it in the past, and I really do think we can do it in the future if we talk to and let up, because I rest assured, thousands of people are doing the same thing about their other issues that they care about. I will tell you, the number one issue that I'm getting in my inbox right now is pickleball.
You're for or against?
I don't want to. I'm for it based on how many people are for it. But it's forcing me to address the issue. So I'm spending a significant amount of time working with the pickleball community to see where in the community we can be addressing pickleball. But again, it's because I have so many people emailing me about pickleball. Same thing.
It is
happening. I think it's healthy. Let's get people excited about the trails and get more people speaking up, because that's going to create more time and attention with our elected officials.
Great, thank you.
Richard, I'm up for a field trip, by the way, for real.
All right, let's organize it.
Awesome.
I'll go up with you all. Let me know.
Okay, what else is there for Patrick? Anything? Who was trying to speak up?
Hi, Claudio.
Hi there. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Claudio.
Hi.
Hi, Sandy.
Just keep Deanza's name. Don't change it.
There you go.
I thought I'd get that in.
I do whatever Donna tells me to do.
Yeah, right. I'm Republican. Don't forget.
That's why we can claim bipartisan support.
That's right.
All right. Well, let's see. We're at about almost 1:30. I would like to just make one little kind of short-term announcement, and then we'll let everybody go and honor everybody's time. This evening from 5:30 to 7, the chamber is having a mixer, pre-holiday mixer, just to say hello to everybody. There will be raffle prizes. You get to see me. I mean, what other incentive would you need? So if we have a few minutes, just come by and hang out. We've got board members coming.
I'll be there.
Awesome. We've got members of the public.
Lobby me about the trails there.
Okay, I'll lobby you there. We'll lobby you there. Come on down, and we have wine flowing, and we've made snacks. Edna and I have made snacks. So everybody, please come on down. It's also a little mini fundraiser as we leave 2023. And hopefully we'll see you this evening.
And I understand that there is the tree lighting going on at the city. It's at 6, but I've been told that the speeches will be super small. So you're excused if you're going back there, but coming back, and I'll go myself to make sure you guys come back at the chamber.
I don't know. They're politicians speaking and they're not, I don't know if they'll be short speeches.
Oh,
The mayor seems to be succinct these days, so
he's good.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I'll see you all tonight.
yes, awesome. Looking forward to it.
Thank you all.
Guys.
Appreciate it.
Have a weekend.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.